You've mastered the art of hiding it. When someone asks how you're doing, you smile and say, I'm fine, even when your entire world feels like it's falling apart inside. You've learned that most people don't really want the truth. They want the version of you that makes things easier for them. So you bury the chaos, the heartbreak, the exhaustion, and you carry it quietly. But deep down, you wish someone could see past the mask, someone who wouldn't need you to explain your pain just to validate that it's real. Because being an INFJ means you feel everything deeply, fully, and yet you've been conditioned to act like you feel nothing at all. You absorb everyone's emotions, even when they say nothing. You've always been the emotional sponge in the room. Long before anyone admits they're upset, you already feel the weight of it pressing on your chest. You pick up on the sadness behind someone's forced laugh, the tightness in their voice when they say, I'm okay, and the restless energy they try to hide with fake confidence. It's not something you try to do, it just happens. You're wired to notice what others miss, but what they always seem to miss is you. They don't ask if you're okay. They don't sense the heaviness in your tone or the way your smile doesn't quite reach your eyes. You're constantly absorbing their emotions, holding space for their struggles while silently drowning in your own. And maybe the hardest part is knowing that while you see everyone else so clearly, no one really sees you. You carry emotional weight alone because explaining feels pointless. You've opened up before once, maybe twice, and each time it left a mark. Not because you were vulnerable, but because the response made you feel even more alone. You tried to put your feelings into words, hoping someone would understand, but instead you found yourself explaining, justifying, almost apologizing for how you felt. And that's when it hit you. What's the point? Most people don't really listen to understand. They listen to reply, to fix you, to tell you how you should feel. So now you just keep it in, not because you're cold or detached, but because the emotional labor of opening up feels heavier than staying silent. You carry the weight by yourself, not because you want to, but because every time you tried to share it, it somehow came back heavier. You downplay your pain to avoid burdening others. You've mastered the art of minimizing your pain. Even when something hurts deeply, your instinct is to say, it's fine, or it could be worse. You convince yourself it's not worth bringing up, not because it doesn't matter, but because you don't want to burden anyone else. You're always so aware of how your emotions might affect people, so you soften your truth, tuck it away, and act like everything's manageable. You've learned to protect others from your own discomfort, even at the cost of your own peace. But the truth is, it is that bad sometimes, and pretending otherwise doesn't make it hurt less, it just leaves you feeling alone in it. You carry the weight with a quiet grace, not because it's easy, but because somewhere along the way, you started believing that your pain should never be someone else's problem. You feel invisible in moments when you need support the most. You're the one people turn to when they need comfort, advice, or just someone to listen. You've held space for so many, always showing up with empathy and patience, even when you had nothing left to give. But when the roles are reversed, when you're the one silently breaking, no one seems to notice. You sit in your pain, waiting for someone to ask how you're doing, hoping maybe this time someone will see past the surface. But the messages don't come. The calls don't happen. You're surrounded by people, yet somehow feel completely invisible. And that's what cuts the deepest, not the pain itself, but the silence around it. The feeling that your presence matters only when you're strong, only when you're giving. So you learn to expect nothing. You keep showing up for others, even as part of you quietly wonders, who would ever show up for you? You smile through exhaustion because that's what people expect. You've become the one everyone relies on, the steady voice, the calm presence, the person who always seems to have it together. People admire your emotional strength, your ability to stay composed no matter what's going on. But what they don't realize is how much of that strength is just survival. You smile when you're exhausted. You offer advice when your own thoughts are in chaos. You play the role because it's what everyone expects from you. There's no space for you to fall apart because the moment you do, everything around you feels like it might collapse too. So you keep the mask on, you stay collected even when you're screaming on the inside because if you break, who's gonna catch you? And that quiet pressure, the unspoken responsibility to always be okay, it slowly eats away at you until being strong doesn't feel like strength anymore. It feels like a cage. You crave deep understanding, but you rarely feel truly seen. You don't want crowds, applause, or constant validation. What you crave is something quieter, deeper. You want someone to sit with your silence and still understand, someone who can feel what you're feeling without needing you to spell it out. Because words don't always work for you. You've tried to explain your thoughts before, only to be misunderstood or worse, dismissed. So you've stopped trying so hard. But the longing is still there, to be seen, really seen, to have someone recognize the parts of you you've kept hidden because you didn't know if they were too much or not enough. It's not about being the center of attention. It's about finding that rare person who looks at you and says, I get it, without forcing you to explain. Because for once, you just want to feel understood without having to unravel yourself for the sake of someone else's comfort. You've built emotional walls to protect yourself from being misunderstood. You didn't set out to build walls. You built them because you had to. Every time you opened up and someone brushed it off or twisted your words, a new brick went up. Not out of bitterness, but out of self-preservation. You don't hate people, you still care deeply, maybe too deeply, but you've learned that not everyone deserves access to your inner world. That silence, as painful as it can be, often hurts less than the sting of being misunderstood or minimized. So now you stay quiet. You nod, smile, deflect. You keep your real thoughts tucked away behind calm expressions and vague answers. Because every time you let someone in and they didn't get it, or worse, didn't try, it left a scar. So your silence isn't emptiness, it's protection. And until someone shows they're truly safe, you'll keep your truth guarded. Not because you're cold, but because you've been burned by too many careless hands. If this feels like you, if you've been carrying so much in silence, know that you're not alone. There are others who feel the same depth, the same quiet battles, even if they never say it out loud. If you want more moments like this where someone truly sees you and understands what you're feeling, subscribe and come back for more, because here, your silence has a voice.